And hello and welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. And as always, thanks so much for being here. I hope you enjoy the show. Well, we're going to highlight a local author and artist by the name of Moya Hession-Aiken, and she's based in Essex, Connecticut. And Moya, thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
We have a wonderful woman by the name of Karen who works on the show, who said you just have to have Moya as a guest. So I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here.
Right, and thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thanks to Karen. There she is. What we had talked about before the show started is your background. So why don't you introduce yourself to the viewer? Let us know about yourself.
Okay, so I was born and raised in the north of England in the largest housing project in Europe. It was 11 square miles of public housing in a predominantly Protestant area, and we were Irish Catholics. So it was a little difficult at times. And in fact, the New York Times in 2007 wrote about this place, which is called Wythenshawe, as a referred to as with social deprivation and alienation. So clearly it was not the nicest place to grow up.
No.
But I was fortunate that I had amazing parents and I was really nurtured, and it worked out pretty well. Yeah.
And how long were you there before you came to the United States? You do have an accent still.
I do. Pretty much British accent. I lived there, and then I went to art school in London, and then after art school, my dream since I was 5 years old was coming to America. I always was going to come to America, and after I graduated art school, I got a one-way ticket and had $350 in my pocket, and I flew to New York, and I didn't know anybody, but I knew that's where I was going to be. I had a number of somebody that I could probably sleep on their sofa, which I did, and yeah. And I was an illegal immigrant, yes, and I got a job in an Irish bar, and after about 4 days working there, I was in the bar before it opened, and I was loading the shelves, and these two guys came in, and they said, you know, hey, is the owner here? And I'm like, oh, awfully sorry, not here at the moment. Can I help you? And they go, immigration. And so I just dropped my glass that I was putting on the shelf, and I called the bartender over, and I was like, these two gentlemen are for immigration. And the guy's like, all right, come with me. And he wanted to show them around, and he's saying, like, you know, to me to get out. And so I'd watched Jimmy Cagney movies, and I knew that a church was a place of refuge. So I knew there was a church around the corner. So I walked out of the place slowly, because I know there's people waiting to catch you. I was so terrified. I walked around the place, and I went to the church, and I knelt down and I was praying. Then the door opened, and another waitress came in. They'd all watched Jimmy Cagney movies, obviously. And then the door opened, and the bartender came in, and then we were all staying there praying, and then this one goes, oh, Holy Mary, Mother of God. And we thought he was praying. He goes, I nearly myself, Jesus, you know, we're like, oh, God. Yeah, so we stayed there all huddled together for quite a while, actually. Yeah, but it worked out okay.
How long did you stay in the city? Did you pursue being an author or an artist while you were there?
I'm a textile designer. That was what my training was in art school, as a textile designer. And so I had a couple of contacts, and there was a couple from England, and I would help them out sometimes with designing, things like that. And they called me, and they asked me if I would look after their studio and their cat while they were away in California with their work. So I said, sure, you know, it was a nice apartment, Fifth Avenue, no problem. So they left, and the night they left, there was a phone call, and I picked it up, and there's this woman saying they wanted to speak to this couple, and I said, oh, they're away, they're not going to be back for 2 weeks. For these people, nobody had phones, so they wanted me to check the phone messages too, so that's why I was staying there all the time. And so she said to me, are you a designer? And I was like, yeah. She goes, oh, I need this work done immediately. Can you get over here? And I was like, sure. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I went to the garment center, and this woman, she said, I need these things Monday morning, 8:30 in the morning. So I was like, okay. And I left there, I was terrified. I was like, what have I done? So I sat down, and I'd seen how these people work. So I kind of figured out how they'd done these designs. Technically, it was a little tricky. So I sat down, and there were 4 pieces they wanted, and I did them. And I said, they're not good enough. I spent the whole weekend doing them, I had like 38 by the end of the weekend. And then the first 4 I did were, of course, the best 4. So I set my alarm, I got up, I showered, I did my hair, ironed my clothes, and I went off to the garment centre at 8:30, and I go in and I hand them to the receptionist. I said, these are for Michelle Diamore. She needs them urgently. So the woman goes, yeah, honey, just leave them there. I'm like, no, this is really important. She goes, she'll get them. You can go now. So I left, and I thought, oh, God, what have I done? And I didn't hear anything. And then after about a week, these people came back, and I said, I did a job for you, and I haven't heard anything. And they said, that's a good sign. In the fashion business, if you don't hear anything, it's a good sign. If you've done something wrong, you hear about it. So they called the company, and the people said, does she want a job? And I said, well, I don't have work papers. They said, we'll sponsor her. So that was it. I was on my way.
Now, you're saying the fashion industry in New York City as a textile artist. Mm-hmm. What does that mean in the garment industry? What did you do?
I designed the fabrics for the garments. Yeah, so in fact, one of my first jobs was designing the pattern, the fabric, for the Olympic swimming team, which I thought that was great until I saw the guys with the Speedo. It was about this much fabric. I was like, well, that, yeah. So, and I would do, lots of, many different fabrics for different companies. And then after about 5 years, I decided I would rather do it on my own. So I had my own studio, and I would go around with my portfolio and sell the work to, Perry Ellis, Calvin Klein, a lot of big names. And that's how it works. You sell your designs, and people come from Europe, and they have their portfolios, and, they pick and choose designs. So, yeah.
I have your book.
Okay.
It's called Shoulder, which is right here, which is wonderful, if you see it. And you mentioned also MTV as part of your background as well, which is New York.
Yep.
How did you move from the fashion industry over to MTV?
Well, I can say I had my own portfolio. My portfolio basically was consisting of lots of drawings, and I did like very sort of graphic designs and very bold things, and so I didn't do like flowers and foulards and paisleys. It was a little bit more sort of kind of younger, and so somebody saw my portfolio and said, can I take this to the creative director at MTV, which they did, and then they called and said, would I be interested in working there? And it was literally across the street from my apartment. So I was like, yeah, this is nice. So I ended up working there for several years. And that's where I met my husband, who was, he had a television show called the Half Hour Comedy Hour. And every week he would pick a different comedian as a feature, and it was called Ones to Watch. So I was responsible for getting that photograph and making like a graphic of that person. And he highlighted, not Jim Carrey, Adam Sandler, Seinfeld. I mean, he featured all the huge comedians of today. They started off at his half-hour comedy hour on MTV.
With MTV mm-hmm. and your background, you don't think about it. You think about music videos mm-hmm. and you think about seeing that on television. What was your job? You were in the background.
Well, I would do different things. I mean, like graphics, like titles, animated pieces, animated openings. And there was lots of different shows. There was like a game show. There was Headbangers Ball was Headbangers music, so we'd have to do illustration. You had lots of different subjects, different types of music. So we would work on on the various types of music, and also because my background was painting and actually physically not working on a computer but physically working on paper. They asked me to paint these huge paintings, that sort of abstracts that could be rolled up and sent to different locations. So, for example, as I mentioned, say the Rolling Stones are in town, they're doing an interview, and they're staying at the Plaza. Well, they didn't really want to, Mick Jagger sitting there with a nice sort of chintzy background. So they would have these huge backdrops, and they would unroll them, and then it would carry the branding of MTV throughout whoever they interviewed. So that was kind of fun doing that.
Oh, it sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
So here's New York, and now you're here in Essex, mm-hmm. Connecticut. What brought you up to the shoreline?
Well, basically, after my husband passed away, and my husband's family were from Bridgeport and in Connecticut generally, And I have a son, and I thought it'd be nice for him to actually be where his family had grown up and, know some of his family, because most of my family, well, all of my family are in Ireland or England. So we chose Essex. And we used to come up on the weekends, and I love it. I'm really happy here, yeah.
And you were telling me, we'll talk about your being an artist, because I want to show your pictures. Okay. That where you're living, you have a building on your property where you do your art. What kind of artist are you now?
Well, now I have freedom, because when you're a textile designer, or if you're a graphic designer, you're sort of working your aim is to please what somebody wants. Like they have a direction that they want. But now I have the freedom to do what I want, what's in my head. So I'm what they call a formalist, which means my work doesn't really have any hidden meanings. I mentioned to you before, I had a show one time, and somebody came over to me and for 20 minutes described what my work meant. And I was like, oh, that's nice. I never thought of it like that. So I do large pieces. I work on paper, but I use graphite and oil, and I blend pastels. So they're sort of quite big, a lot of geometrics. But I work a lot on paper.
Okay, let's take a break. Okay. We're halfway through.
All right.
I'm Deborah Gilbert. You are tuned into Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Earnings taxes, because cable TV providers are losing customers.
Yet cable companies continue to enjoy a tax exemption on their equipment that their telecom competitors don't get.
At the same time, the telecoms don't pay gross earnings tax. This doesn't make sense. It's time to level the playing field.
Make everyone pay their fair share.
Please support sustainable funding for digital equity,
community access,
and the CTN network.
Come on in, come on in.
Welcome to Sure Things.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mazzetti Show.
Hello and welcome to Arts and Entertainment. And welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and I hope you're enjoying the show. Well, what we were talking about during the break was let's highlight a few things. Let's talk about your pictures. If we can roll those pictures, let's roll through them and we'll talk about them once they're finished. Oh, okay, here we go.
Okay.
What am I seeing right now?
Well, this is this is my work. There's a lot of detail. You have to look really hard to see all the detail. And I work in, my primary drive is line. I work a lot with line. It's very important to me. So you'll see lots of variations of line and line within line. And yeah, it's very simple work, but yeah. Okay,
next one.
I think this one currently resides in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, okay. Yep. Here we go.
Yep. This is this work is something I've been working on recently. The thing behind this is it's cut board, and it's actually mat board. So all these pieces are cut, and I take them out, and I don't plan. It's sort of a train of thought, and I don't use rulers. It's all freehand. And when you have a picture framed and it's mounted on mat board. So the painting is the lead in that. So I've kind of reversed it because the mat board here is the star of the show. As opposed to being the thing that supports the main piece of art. So,
okay, yep. And the next one?
Again, this is another cut piece. This is a very large piece that I think resides in Long Island. Yep, it's a very, very large piece. Again, it's a journey. I call them amaze, like amazing, amazed or amazing. And the other one was Blue Amaze. That's kind of a Jimi Hendrix reference,
Okay, next one?
This piece is called Islands. It's quite simple, but again, use of line and then a lot of detail in the larger island there.
Next one?
This is a whole series I have called Balance, and it's a variety of the bowls. I mean, I love the bowl shape. It's such a wonderful shape to work with. I'm very drawn to it, and so that's a kind of a large piece too.
Next one?
This is This one's called Over My Head, and again, another large piece.
Okay.
And I believe this one resides in Fenwick, in Old Saybrook.
Oh, wonderful.
In the old Catherine Hepburn place.
Oh, my goodness, wow.
Yeah.
Next one?
That's again part of that same series, and I use a lot of detail in the background. The technique is a little different here. I cut stencils and I use oil and graphite in the foreground and then just graphite and pastel in the background.
Wonderful. And the next one?
Again, similar big bowl and a lot of use of the line.
Wonderful. Next one?
Yep, again, I think this one is in California.
Wow,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. I should get frequent flyer miles or something. Sending this work out.
Okay, the next one?
Yeah, this one currently is in San Francisco on show. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. Next one?
Oh, this one, my neighbor, I have these incredible neighbors that moved here from the city, and they came to my studio and they purchased this piece and they have it in their house. So when I walk past their house, I see it on the wall. That's kind of nice.
That's wonderful. And the next one?
Again, another bowls. This one's very large. I can't remember how large it is, but it's considerably larger than the other piece.
They're wonderful.
Thank you.
I love them.
Thank you.
Your website, let's talk about the website.
Okay.
What will people find when they go there?
If you go to the website, the art website, you'll find various styles of work or the progression. There'll be some, maybe I've done 10 years ago, and then and then currently it'll say new works, and I have small works. I have, a variety of different things, and you'll see how I consider when I do work, it's a story. So if I have an idea, I execute the idea, and then I'll think of another one. So it actually comes from the training as a textile designer, because you do groups of 5. So I call them stories, and I'll do a story of 5 pieces. Because when you're a textile designer, if you have an idea and you do 5 of them, chances are you might sell 2, which is great. Unfortunately, you might be stuck with 3, but that's how it works.
Now, you were mentioning your home in Essex, and you have a building in the back that's your studio, and you have people that come by and see your work.
Yep.
Is that primarily what you do, and you're doing shows as well?
I primarily I'm kind of in my studio working on my paintings, and then if I have a show, like currently I have a show at the synagogue in Chester, which is an incredible building that was designed by Sol LeWitt, which is pretty amazing. And they have a gallery in there, so it's quite a privilege to be exhibiting there. So I'm in my studio, or if I'm exhibiting. That's only a couple of days I do that.
For the artist that is out there that would like to pursue your path or a path of getting their work shown, what would your advice be as to how to get started?
Firstly, break your knuckles. It's hard. It's hard. I have people come up to me and say, "Oh, my son's great at art. He loves it." I'm like, "Oh God, it's not easy. It's very hard." I mean, the actual work is brilliant. I love it, but to actually get it out there, it's quite challenging. And I've been very fortunate. I really have, but I'm not in the big leagues, clearly. So I mean, if you love it, just do it. And don't falter. Just don't falter. I mean, that's if you do it in your spare time. I do a drawing a day, whether it's in a large piece in my studio, but I have a little book, sketchbook, and I'll do a drawing. It won't be like a finished piece, but it'll be an idea, because that's what art is. It's ideas. So if you have an idea, even if just do a little sketch of it or just write it down, but just make it your own.
For the people that are coming to see your shows, is it your show alone, or are you showing with other artists?
This one at the moment is my show, just me. Yeah, which is nice.
Speaking of that, how about the calendar for 2024? Do you have other things that are going on?
Well, I have something in San Francisco right now, and I have something in Rochester, and I'm not quite sure where I'm going forward, because I'm working with the book a lot right now. I'm going to be doing I'm going to be in the Ocean House in August, talking about my book. I'm doing author events, local events, author events. Yeah, so.
That's a good thing that I wanted to talk about next. Is you're also an author. Tell us
what a
how
transition.
I got author artist as your description.
Yeah.
Tell us what being an author is all about.
Well, interestingly enough, I was like the worst student in school. I was never going to accomplish anything. I failed my exams miserably. I couldn't write. I couldn't do any of that. So the fact that I'm sitting here and you're holding a book that I actually have published is miraculous, shall we say. I never consider myself a writer. I consider myself a storyteller. I'm very blessed having the Irish blood in me, which obviously has a history of great storytelling. And my first example of that was my father. And we would sit around the fire, and it sounds like incredibly glamorous, but it was a project in a house in the projects in the north of England with a gas fire that was on a wall. And he would tell stories, and every time he told a story, he could tell it 100 times. I would get like butterflies, you know. So because of that, that's where I learned the art of storytelling. And so I would tell stories. I was telling stories. Oh, this happened, and I would always say, people say, you should write it down. Or it always happens to you. And I said, well, I don't think it always happens to me. I think it's that I create a story out of what happens. So then I started writing. And at first I found it very difficult because I don't type. So I was writing it longhand. I did, then eventually I did type it like methodically. But I would write, and then at the end of the day, to reward myself, I would illustrate what I'd written. And I did that every day. That was my carrot at the end of the day of writing. And then when the publisher saw it, they're like, the book is great, but we can't show the illustrations. It's going to be too expensive. So maybe one day they will be resurrected. Yeah. So.
With your writing, did you think that you would become a published author? I mean, the book is right here. No. I mean, it's out there. Yeah. Did you think that this is what was going to happen?
Not really. I mean, obviously, when I was contacted about it, I was, like, okay. And I didn't really realize what it entailed. But my big driving force was it has to be my book. It has to be my voice. I was because as you probably mentioned, I talk about me dad and me mum and me sister, me uncle, and I didn't want that change to, mother and father and all of that. So I was very adamant that it had to be my voice, which amazingly it is. But I'm more surprised at the reviews. The reviews have been incredible, The first one was Kirkus, which is pretty, and that's the big review and that's what I was waiting for. And when that came out, I couldn't believe it. Apparently I'm a gifted writer and a great storyteller, and it was like a real surprise, because I thought, my friends like it, but now, people are reaching out to me and, enjoying it, and people stop me in the street even talking about it.
Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. Congratulations.
It's very grassroots though, it's very grassroots, because what I didn't realize, and I'm a first-time author, small publishing house, and what I didn't realize was to get it, reviewed by the Times and, the Guardian, places like that. You have to submit 3 months before the book is published, and we didn't do that. So that door was closed, They have to be the first to see things. So, but I'm getting a lot of good reviews in various places. So.
Now, to the author that's watching us, because you've got dual things happening here, what would your advice be about getting started as an author?
Well, a lot of people say, "Oh, I wish I could write a book," but you just have to start. You just literally have to, don't plan it in advance. It's like the artwork. If you have an idea, just jot it down, and then maybe I'm going to write a few pages on this. It doesn't have to be that what you write doesn't have to be that's it. It has to be malleable. You have to be able to, see your journey. If it's a journey, see the journey. If it's, whatever your story is, that's what it's about. And how I approach this book is it's like having a chat with me, It really is. That's how I talk to myself in the car. If I see things, I do things, and I literally talk to myself in the car, and that's my storytelling. I tell myself stories. Crazy, I know, but I do tell myself stories,
It's probably the best way to do it.
If you're sitting in a car at a traffic light next to me and you see me talking to myself, oh well, no, yeah.
Any plans for more books?
Well, that's the other thing. That's the first question people ask me. Karen is one of them. When's the sequel? So I've actually started writing that, but it'll be a much, much, much different story than this. Because the first, I'm not giving anything away, but the first page of the book is the day of my husband's funeral. And that's the last page of the book, too.
Yes, yes.
So it's the first, literally the first 32 years of my life. And then after that, things changed dramatically. You know, I had a small son to raise, and yeah, it becomes, and a lot of exciting things happen, too.
Yes, of course.
Yep.
Well, we are starting to run out of time.
Okay.
Do you have any closing thoughts for the viewers, either as an author, as an artist, or in life in general?
I don't know, actually. Just enjoy. If you're an artist, enjoy it. If you love painting, paint. If you love drawing, drawing. Just keep doing it. And the same with writing. Write your ideas down. That's the main thing. That's how it works for me, you know. And talk to yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for
thank
being
you.
here.
Thank
It's
you
been
so
a
much.
pleasure having you.
Yeah, it's lovely. Thank you so much.
And I'm Deborah Gilbert. You've been tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. Hope you've enjoyed the show. In case you need to reach me, I'm at artsandentertainment@mail.com. Well, I hope you have a super day today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.